Heath Chapman saves the Dockers from embarrassment after a heroic goal line save against the Crows.
Collingwood turned heads with their round 1 performance.
And we're back, baby.
This is the DrewFooty Show.
Hey, long road, took a tumble down this black hole. Stuck in Sunday League, but I'm on levels with Ronaldo.
Hello, you plonkers, and welcome back to the DrewFooty Show, Season 2, Episode 1. And Jesse, we're communicating over the intercoms today. We can't do it together anymore because you are a close contact of COVID. I just made that up.
It's not true.
That was not a good joke.
It's not funny. It's not even remotely funny.
You can tell that we're rusty, but it doesn't matter because we're back and we're going to get better. And Jesse, take over. How are we doing?
Yeah, good, mate. I personally requested to film these over, not Skype, but Facebook Messenger, actually. It's good to get a bit of space from you, and it's good to be COVID safe.
Absolutely, mate. Now, I thought this show was going to be dead and buried, a one-season wonder, but we've managed to pull it together. We might not be able to do it together much. We will when we can, but for the most part, it's going to be over the phone. Is that correct, Jesse?
Yeah, you nailed it.
It's going to be a semi-podcast style. Last year it was very chopped up and segmented and researched. This year we're going to talk a bit more about tipping and just the main talking points from the game and just have a yarn.
With less research.
This
is the DrewFooty Show.
Unprofessional. But we still have the segments that we had last year. So let's get into Bloke of the Week. Bloke of the Week for the first week, Jesse, goes to Sam Doherty. The man's come back from testicular cancer. That's bloody life-ending, just about, if not career-ending. But he's come back, fought back, literally nearly from the death. And there's a new look in his eye. He's determined to make the Blues great again. And he come back, didn't look like he missed a beat. 26 touches and a goal. What are your thoughts now? That's what we do. We throw it to each other.
No, very, very worthy nomination. I think there's quite a handful of blokes you could nominate for Bloke of the Week. There was some standout individual performances, some of them debutants, but I think you got to give it to the man who's recovering from a bout of cancer as well. So, great to see him return, and not only that, but play really well. I'm really happy for him and Blues fans too.
Sam Doherty, you are the Bloke of the Week. Last year, we got a lot of topics from our fans on Instagram at DrewFooty_. So go follow that up. That's going to be back up and running again. It's been dead over the off-season, but it's back, baby. If you want to have your say in the show, go follow DrewFooty_ on Instagram. Obviously, the first game was Melbourne versus the Bulldogs. It feels like a bloody week ago because it just about was a week ago. But that game pretty much was the grand final replayed. It was the grand final replay. The D's got on top in the end. Not by a bloody 70-point margin or whatever it was in the grand final, but they dominated proceedings in the second half. Jesse, are the D's back? Are they primed for another flag?
Well, you can't make too many predictions based on round 1. However, I think you'd have to give them a tick for that performance when you're coming up against a team you surely think is in the mix for the premiership hunt again to win in a maybe not similar fashion, but not too far off the mark and off the pace. Melbourne should be pretty satisfied with that, although it did come at the cost of Salem, which would be a blow.
The Bulldogs showed some real nice stuff in parts, I thought. In particular, that second quarter really showed their brand. But when you're coming up against the best defensive side in the league, there's only so long that you can impose that for. The D's got out on top in that one. I said we're not going to talk about every game, but the next game that we are going to talk about is Carlton versus Richmond. Usually the season opener. It wasn't this year, though. And Carlton won this fixture for the first time since 2012. And I reckon, Jesse, there's these games that you have, and I'm going to compare this to Dockers versus West Coast. Once the streak of wins ends, a new streak will begin for the side that won. Obviously, the derby's in 3 weeks, and West Coast could easily win that and prove me wrong. But it just feels like a changing of the guard. I reckon Carlton are ready to climb the ladder. And after that performance from Richmond, I reckon I'm going to give them the losers of the week for me this week. Because they really didn't show me anything at all, the Tigers. They didn't get to impose their game plan. They didn't have control of the game for much of it at all. And I just think they're in a bit of an identity crisis. Because that footy that they played, it didn't have a patent on it, mate. There was no brand on that at all. What'd you make of this game? The Tigers, are they going down? The Blues, what impressed you about them?
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I'm probably not as scathing of Richmond's performance as you are, but I do think that there's no doubt there's a clear lack of depth in that side. We saw Prestia go down early, and unfortunately they just didn't have the answers. I mean, to be fair to them, they got a few goals in front. I think as late as the last quarter, there were several goals in front. So I could be wrong on that, but then obviously Carlton just took charge. So I think the question around depth is a valid one. Looking at Richmond, they've had a few retirements, and I think they recognise that about their list. They've been, drafting heavy and going for youth as well. So absolutely a team on transition, and I feel pretty comfortable now that Carlton will be better this year, but that is going early.
What do you think has been an improvement in Carlton's game this year compared to last?
I think straight off the bat, you have to look at the midfield production, like Paddy Cripps having 3 goals and 30 touches. It's been a while since he's looked that good. But then also having someone like Chera stand up in the absence of Walsh. He had 30 touches and a goal. Just as an aside, how do you respond to the scathing backlash you got on the DrewFooty YouTube channel for your comments on Carlton and Chera all night?
Look, Chera is now a banned word in the comment section of my live streams. That man broke my heart. So... look, any hate that's coming my way, it's reciprocated straight back towards Adam Chera. No further comment.
No, I like it. But a massive recruitment, and Hewitt obviously contributed as well. So you have to think they did that without arguably their best player in Sam Walsh. So, there's a lot of upside still with Carlton.
A different sort of Sam that impressed me a lot in Carlton's list was, is it Sam De Koning, or is that the one that plays for Geelong?
You're right. It is the Geelong one. So it's Tom De Koning.
So Sam's brother, Tom.
Good segue, though. Good segue. Very good.
Tom De Koning is one of the most athletic players I've ever seen play in the AFL. That could be a bit of a stretch, but I said to Jesse, as the first quarter started, watch out for this bloke to take 8 speckies this year. 2 minutes later, he took a specky. In the preseason, we saw his athleticism. Him in the ruck could prove to be a difference maker at the Blues this season, I reckon. Yeah,
he's definitely one that Blues fans have sort of been talking up. I've noticed a lot of optimism around him, but I think that was at least the first time I've watched where, certainly turned a few heads. So, they got a good young spine. So continuing on the trend of what I thought were good games, Drews, at least in terms of being fairly close for most of the contests, we had St Kilda versus Collingwood on the Friday night. This is a game I didn't expect to go quite like it did, with the Pies ultimately getting the job done. And other than a third quarter fade out, I think it was, they looked a very, very good team. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I'm going to give Collingwood my winners of the week because everyone has wrote off the Pies, I feel, including myself. I reckon the general consensus has just been chuck the Pies down the bottom. They finished second last year, so they'll finish down there again. I said this in the 9 things I learned about Collingwood. The Buckley project didn't work out, obviously, but we still see the stars that are there. Your De Goeys. Oh, we don't speak about him, do we? But still side bottom, Pendlebury, Crisp. They got the Grundys, all these guys, Darcy Moore, that are always there. And they've got this real nice crop of young talent building around that. I reckon they haven't really lost that, that star power. It's still there. And I reckon just with their new coach, could have just revitalised the Pies and they could surprise a lot of people this year. Their list depth isn't like A grade, obviously, but if they can keep a fit side out on the park, I reckon Collingwood could surprise a lot of people this year. What did you make of the Saints, though, Jesse? Because they were expected to go into this game and win it, first game of the season. But, yeah, it wasn't great, was it?
No, Drews. I think the Saints qualify as my loser of the week, well and truly, because, look, you have to mark them harshly. I know we talked up Collingwood. I thought they played a really good team sort of brand of football, despite having that much youth. The way they sort of all, their intensity and their intent all night was far too strong for the Saints, other than that third quarter. I think you have to mark the Saints harshly because they're a mature list. They made finals a couple of years ago. You could write off a bad year in 2021, but this is a year where, obviously if you're going for finals, you can't drop too many games. So it remains to be seen if Collingwood are a good team, then you may forgive that one in hindsight. But other than a third quarter blitz, I thought the Saints well and truly had the Pies really had their number.
I don't have them finishing in my top 8 this year in my season predictions. I don't see why people rate them so highly. I think they could have won this game in parts. Jack Higgins had a stinker of a game, as much as I love him, had a stinker. And Jack Hayes was their only real shining light on debut. I think he kicked 3 goals in the third quarter and, brought a lot of energy. But I reckon the Saints are a little bit overhyped. Obviously, this is round 1. They could turn around next week and go on to win the flag for all I know. But from what I've seen in the last 12 months from the Saints, I've not been impressed. I reckon they could have won this game in parts, but they had parts where the momentum could go their way or against them. They had a few unfortunate umpire calls come at times where they really needed a goal. And Jack Higgins just not being clean at times when they needed to put some points on the board. He couldn't do it. I think it was just a matter of the momentum going against them when it should have been going towards them from lack of end product as well as umpiring decisions going against them at wrong times. But you can't blame the umpires. You should be putting the game to bed, especially when you go into this game as favourites.
Yeah, 100%. I don't necessarily... I didn't have them in my top 8 either. It's just like... I think their list is solid and they weren't in finals that long ago. So the goal had to be finals this year. And I imagine it still is, but I think that's just what makes this result so bitterly disappointing for them.
Keeping on with the trend about not speaking about every game, we're going to speak about the exact next game where Geelong took on Essendon at the MCG. Essendon coming into this season after making the top 8 last year with high hopes. They want to make the 8 again. Hell, they could even push for the top 4, but not today, said the Geelong Cats as they stamped a reality check on the Bombers, Jesse. The only shining light was Nick Martin, who kicked 5 goals on debut for the Bombers. Could be a future star in the making, but what did you make of this game?
Yeah, I don't really wanted to talk about this game because I feel like the Cats probably qualify as my winners of the week. I just love the idea of them just smashing expectations every year. Like, they're always a good team, and every year they're picked to decline, and they've just come out and made a massive statement. I've been big on them all pre-season. They rarely drop down. Like, I know they have at various times, but they're always a strong competitive team, and the decline's coming, but it's not here right now. So for them to smash a finals team from last year by 11 goals, and I know they copped an injury, that's a big statement from them.
The Sydney Derby, Josiah, was a bloody corking game. It was hot in the kitchen, a fiery contest. Neither team wanted to back down. They both put their hands in the fire and said, all right, if you take your hand out first, you're a pussy. And GWS took their hand out first. Sydney remained on top, and they got the dub in the Derby. I got this tip wrong. I tipped the Giants, Jesse, and you got it right, mate. You got 7 out of 9 tips this week. You're on top of me and tipping for the first time ever.
Yeah, literally the first time ever. I thought this game continued the trend of quality football games. It was high scoring, obviously, and obviously that hasn't been the trend in recent years, but across the board, good round of footy, and this was no exception. I thought it just felt like the Swans just sort of had the answers when it mattered. The Giants would sort of push and then not capitalise on their opportunities, and ultimately that's where games are won, right? And when you have a guy like Luke Parker taking every half opportunity that he can, that was ultimately the difference. He was absolutely, my 3 votes, absolute match winner in that game.
Definitely. I reckon the Swans are going to be in a prelim this year, Jesse. Calling it now. I love the way that they operate as a unit. They are one of those teams that just don't have lapses in games. Like, they just always seem to be in the contest for all 4 quarters. Massively impressed by the Swans. Shout outs to your surprise Rising Star nomination, Gussie Sheldrick, for getting a debut. And he did some good things as well. But yeah, the youth is coming through the Swans and learning from this veteran side. They have the champion DNA. The Swans are going to be right up there in September, I believe. The Saturday night game was Brisbane versus Port Adelaide, Jesse. And I streamed this game thinking, 2 top 4 sides from last year. They're vying for another premiership run in 2022. And the first half was a stinker. I don't know if it was because it was dewy at the Gabba, as it always seems to be. But for whatever reason, I think it was just because of the massive physical presence that the Port boys brung to the contest. Brung, that's not a word, is it?
Nah, we'll roll with it though.
Ken Hinkley said in the pre-game sort of interview on the ground that Brisbane kept getting on top of the contest in previous meetings. So I think to counter that, Port just brought this massive physical presence to the game, and it just made it a real stop-start contest. And then they had some key players go down to injury. Aliir apparently has done a syndesmosis, although he played the entire game. Absolute trooper. Trent McKenzie's gone down. Fingers crossed. I haven't seen the news, but fingers crossed not an ACL, but it does look like it. And he's had a history of injuries as well. And Xavier Dersman went down. Looks like a shoulder, collarbone-ish type injury. So the injuries piling up to go along with the physicality of this game. I think they sort of just burnt out in the probably late towards the third quarter, and then definitely at the start of the fourth, the Brisbane boys bursted through. Joe Danaher actually had a really good game and made a massive impact. Haven't been a massive fan of his in the past, but he had a good game, and the Lions got the dub, Jesse.
You just reverted back to the old format of you saying every single thing about the game.
Every single thing about the game and about every game.
And now it's your turn.
Leave that in.
Those injuries are devastating. I actually didn't realise that about earlier. I missed that in the news. I saw Mackenzie and Drewzy. Gee, he has some bad luck. I don't think that's his first collarbone. I could be wrong, but I think he's done that injury before. Those are two big injuries, particularly Aaliyah, obviously one of the best key backs in the game last year. So that's a cruel blow for the Power, and obviously missed out on the 4 points too. It was just one of those games. It was a trend across the whole round with massive momentum swings. It happened in the Melbourne Bulldogs game, certainly happened Carlton Richmond, St Kilda Collingwood, yes. Even the Sydney GWS game to an extent, and this game I think the Power got up by about 4 goals, not too far off 3/4 time. So it was just a strange game where either side would just get on top for long periods.
Clash of the Titans on Sunday morning as the Hawthorn Hawks took on the North Melbourne Kangaroos. This was just a great game of footy, Jesse. Hey, what do you reckon? I'll let you talk about this one as much as you want, Sunshine. Go ahead.
Oh, look, I didn't catch this game. As viewers of the DrewFooty YouTube channel would know, I did my own review video. Go check that out. But no, I didn't catch the game. I think all you can really say is it kind of went as expected. I tipped Hawthorn. You did too as well, Drews?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think we expected the Hawks to be a few goals better than North Melbourne this year, and that's exactly how it transpired. It would have been nice to see Horn Francis debut. I know he kicked the goal fairly early, I think. And they had some strong contributors, the Roos, but maybe went in a bit tall. But LDU having 27 touches, he's a player I track closely, so hopefully he comes good soon.
Yeah, he's definitely sort of reaching that initial prime years of his career, I reckon. He had a great year last year. Hawthorn kept North Melbourne to the lowest score of the round. And I'm not sure if that's because North Melbourne are the wooden spooners or Hawthorn are a very good defensive side. But I reckon it's Hawthorn's defence. I said that in the 9 things I learned. They've got a lot of good players back down there. But the Hawks were strong. I think they had a good game from what I saw in the fourth quarter. And they're going to be a hard side to beat, I reckon, in 2022. If there was a segment on this show called the Stinker of the Week, Jesse, it'd be the Adelaide versus Fremantle game. Just because I shat myself in that third quarter when Adelaide
and you
started...
missed it.
Yeah. Like, this game was the most bipolar game of football I've ever seen. Freo come out in the first quarter, beautiful ball movement, handball chains off the chain, like linking up well with the forwards. It was really nice, finding good one-on-one mismatches and whatnot. Beautiful. But all of a sudden, we're missing our shots on goal. And I can tell you right now, accurate goal kicking is the number one determinant of winning a game of football. And that might not sound like bloody news to you, but Freo kicked less goals than Adelaide and still won this game. That shows you how inaccurate we were in front of goal. Bailey Banfield was 15 metres out, directly in front, and sprayed it just about out of bounds on the full. Rory Lobb, who requested a trade in the off-season, he's going to need to earn his respect back from the Freo faithful, but his set shot clearly hasn't improved over the off-season. And it took literally a last second heroic from Heath Chapman. The ball going through the goals. Heath Chapman rises up, which Lockie Schultz labelled as the spoil of the century on the goal line. I was just hoping that he'd knock it over, but he kept it in, kept his feet, run on, got the handball and got the clearance as well. And we won this game literally by a fist. But that second half performance from the Dockers was disgraceful. There's no other way to put it. We just completely switched off. Thought we had the game won in the first half. And Adelaide come through firing. Yeah, that was a very, very underwhelming second half from the Dockers. And it makes me scared of this consistency issue that keeps popping up all the time. Can we play consistent football? We didn't show it on the weekend. Jesse.
I was chatting to Joycey and I think he seemed to think that he was concerned about the midfield depth in terms of, rotations and maybe that's where you guys stopped. Is that something you'd agree with? What do you put it down to?
Well, we got no Fife, so that's obviously a massive out. But I don't know. We got Brayshaw, Sarong. Sarong didn't have his best game, but you can't rely on a 21-year-old to run our midfield. Will Brodie was decent. Maybe a lack of depth. I have never felt that we've had a lack of depth, though, so I haven't really looked into that. Maybe that's something I'll try and note
No Sean
week
Darcy.
against the Saints.
No Sean Darcy is
Yes.
a big factor. He's one of your best players.
That is massive, 100%. Yeah, Lloyd Meek was getting bossed around by even Riley Dilthorpe at times in the ruck, which was frustrating me. But Adelaide had their new star born at Adelaide Oval. I forgot his name.
Joshua Shelley.
Joshua Shelley. That was his name. He kicked 5 goals from difficult set shots, and then you go up the other end and you see Rory Lobb just butchering set shots that he should kick. And it's like, this kid's come into the league, kicked 5 goals on debut with a beautiful textbook set shot technique. Why can we not do this? I don't understand why it's so hard for Freo to kick straight. It baffles me. But Heath Chapman, shout out to Heath Chapman, spoil on the line. The bloke's 20 years old and he's going to be an absolute gun. He's been tipped to win the Rising Star this year as well. So keep an eye out for Heath Chapman for the future. But overall for me, Jesse, I was utterly disappointed with Docker's display. I don't think we deserved to win that game after the way we showed up in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, your expectations are so high after that amazing Amy Community Series 1 game at Lathlane Oval.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anything against that is just is going to be considered rubbish, right?
Yeah, that 4-quarter effort in the pre-season game against West Coast where we won almost by 100 points. That's the footy we need to get back to, Jesse. I agree. Couldn't agree with you more. Right, the last game of the round was wet toast versus mold toast. You love your toast memes, don't you, Jesse?
Yes.
No further comment. But West Coast hosted Gold Coast at Optus Stadium last night. And a week ago, I tipped West Coast, but their injuries continued to pile up. Their close contact, I think Tim Kelly was a close contact, right? That's why he didn't play?
He actually got COVID, and I think it later came out that so did Liam Ryan.
Right, I see. So you've obviously got a lot of your best list out. I'll let you talk on about why your team lost this game because you obviously know more about West Coast than I do. But are you starting to be worried after this loss? What's your thought processing about West Coast right now?
I am honestly more confident and more optimistic after having watched that game than I was going into round 1. And the reason for that is, for me, it's not about personnel so much. I think we saw last year with our availability, our form fluctuated around our injuries. So we'd have our players back and then get worse. So for me, it was more game plan and style and intent. And I think we saw a massive improvement. I think we generally saw an improvement from last year in that game. For anyone who wasn't watching it closely, we only picked 3 recognised midfielders in the entire game, one of which was Xavier O'Neill, and he only played 60 minutes out of 130. So to say we're on demand, I don't think I've ever seen a team have this few players. We literally we couldn't name a full emergency bench. So yeah, so that was the context of the game, and I was really happy with the spirit that we played with. And when you're coming up against a team with, you know, a host of number 1 and 2 draft picks in their team, that's to be expected. But not to take too much away from the Suns, they've got no Ben King, and Rao came back and played really well. I think he was voted best on ground, I think, in the coaches' vote. So huge positives for them. For me, it's a write-off of that game, but I'm actually more happy than I was at the start of the round 1.
You guys were so on-demand that, is it Naish? Is he a top-up player?
Yeah.
Naish had to wear Connor West's number 36 because they didn't have his number there in time to play the number 43. So, yeah, it just gives you an idea of how depleted West Coast list is at the moment. Coronavirus times and that, pandemic times and that, these things are going to happen. But, yeah, I think you're right. I think West Coast played some good footy in parts, and you had some good performances. Jermaine Jones probably played the best game of his career. I thought Willie Rioli was a massive addition. That hip and shoulder he landed on Rao was crazy. I can't think of any other word to describe it, mate. Literally just plucked crazy out of the top of my head because I was trying to think of a bigger word, but I couldn't think of one. It was crazy.
He got suspended for a week for it, but they're challenging it tomorrow.
Did he?
Yeah.
See, what's your opinion on that? Because that's just, I feel like he was going for the ball. He got a fist of the ball, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think he was clearly going for the mark and for the ball. But that being said, I don't really weigh in too much in the MRO stuff because sometimes it defies logic, and we've seen players rubbed out for things that seem to be out of their control in the past. So I'll just wait and see what happens.
Did you think it was sort of spiteful from Willie Rioli? I thought it was in the spirit of the game.
I would think so. Yeah, I agree. But like I said, with the MRO, that doesn't really seem to be factored into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just like letter of the law, I suppose.
Yeah.
Touk Miller continues to be an absolute gun. It was his first game in about 15 games that he didn't have more than 30 touches. But his breakaway speed is nuts. Jack Lukosius up forward was a little key master. What's that word? Like little bloody... I don't know what I'm looking for.
Keys and grounds.
Yes,
That's Hagrid.
that's it. But he was just unlocking all the play with his creativity and his elite kick. He was great up forward. And my beard Chol looks good as well, I thought, for the Suns. So, I wrote off the Suns this year. But, they played as a cohesive unit. Hats off to them.
You'd
They
love
played
that
well.
word.
Got their... What?
Cohesive unit.
Cohesive. It's an important phrase, mate. Team cohesion in that. I could be wrong on the Suns. We'll see how they go this season. Let me know in the comments what you think and how they'll go this year. All right, Jesse, we're going to finish every show with our tips for next week. So I'm not on just the tips anymore. You've kicked me off. But we're going to talk about our tips for the next round. You go through yours first, and then I'll go through mine.
So you got the Bulldogs over Carlton. I'm going to tip. As good as Carlton were, I think the Dogs are too strong. Would you agree with that?
Yep, I've tipped them by 36 points. And I don't think Michael Voss will be there because he's a close contact or has COVID or something.
Yeah, that's right. So Ash Hansen, former Eagle, steps up into the role. Sydney versus Geelong at the SCG. This was a thriller last year. We streamed it on your channel, I think, and Jeremy Cameron was denied the mark. I have got the Cats winning this, to be honest. Who do you have?
Oh, I've tipped Sydney, but I remember Geelong just dominating for that whole second half. But they had the Freos. They couldn't kick straight.
It's a tough one.
This is a 50-50 for me. And you're a smart man, so I'm going to tip Geelong.
Don't follow my tips, man.
Collingwood versus Adelaide's the next one, Jesse. I think after that dominant display by the Pies, no reason to tip against them. Back at the MCG, I've tipped Collingwood.
I agree. Yeah, no, they played to a very good standard. And even though Adelaide nearly got the win, I think the Pies have a bit more about them.
Absolutely, I agree. Essendon versus the Lions at Marvel. After Essendon's stinky display against the Cats, I wasn't too impressed with that. And Brisbane, they're a top side. They're going to be there come finals. Can't tip against the Lions for me.
This would just be the sort of stupid game Essendon comes up and thrashes Brisbane A. I feel like in the past they have had big wins over the Lions in Melbourne, but I feel like that's at the G. I feel like the Lions will be too good. But I wouldn't be surprised. That could be an upset of the round.
Port Adelaide versus Hawthorn at Port. Port.
Yeah, you got to tip the home side there. $1.20 favourites, easy money.
Gold Coast versus Melbourne. 4th versus 2nd on the round 1 ladder. I reckon this will be a good contest. After I saw the way that the Suns competed against West Coast, I reckon they're going to take a good challenge to Melbourne, but you can't write off Melbourne. I'm going to tip Melbourne.
I think as the Suns were coming up probably against the weakest the weakest team that was picked this round. Do you know what I mean? So I actually don't take too much from their win yet. If they beat the D's, I will really be yanking their chain, as they say. But no, I don't think unless this descends into a dour injury fest, I think the Demons will be far too strong.
Yep. All right, here we go. North Melbourne versus West Coast at Marvel. Do you have faith that the boys bounce back? They lost this fixture last time.
Drewzy, I've got some names for you to try and emphasise.
Chris.
Tim Kelly.
Stephen. Mark.
Nah, in all seriousness, Tim Kelly, Luke Shuey, potentially Liam Ryan are back, Witherden as well, and Jack Darling is also potentially in. So that's enough for me. I think I've seen enough to tip the Eagles here. I know I'm biased, and I wouldn't be surprised if we lose, but I expect us to win this game, to be honest.
$1.95 to $1.85 are the odds in the favour of West Coast. I'm going to tip North to get up just because they won this fixture last year. I reckon they're just going to have that bit of belief in them that they can execute the game plan and beat West Coast again. God, this is a tough tip, but I'm going to go with North. I could get that one wrong, though. Could get that one terribly wrong. All right, next one is Richmond versus GWS at the MCG. I've gone with the Giants. I reckon they play the G pretty well, and I haven't been impressed with Richmond in recent times. Obviously, there's a plethora of stars on that GWS side, but I have tipped GWS is the one I'm going to make to beat Richmond at the MCG. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I thought I was being cute by tipping the Giants. Now that you've said the Giants, now I want to change it. This for me is genuinely a 50-50. I think Richmond is good enough to win. It's at the MCG. I am tipping the Giants for now, but I'll maybe wait and see on the injury news. I think Presti is probably out, so that probably swings it for me.
I reckon GWS is list depth. I said lisp depth. Brett Delidio. Oh, this is the Brett Delidio Cup, actually, Richmond versus GWS.
True.
I reckon, GWS, they have way more talent than Richmond, and Richmond haven't found their mojo. Anyway, last game of the round, Freo versus St Kilda at Optus, and this game could go either way. The two most bipolar teams in the competition for me. I'm going to back in Freo just because we're at home, and we're usually pretty good at home. What do you reckon?
Yes, well, in the opposite fixture last year, St Kilda annihilated you guys. So, I think the home factor, I'm pretty confident tipping Fremantle.
That will wrap up the first episode of the Drew Footy Show for 2022. Make sure you keep an eye out on mine and Jesse's channel for more content coming out in the 2022 AFL season, because we're back, baby, and we're taking over once again. Thanks for coming, Jesse. Anything you'd like to plug?
I got a few things I want to plug, Drews, but none of them content related. So I think I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for having me back on the show. It's good to be back.
It's good to be back, baby. We'll see you soon. Take care, you plonkers.
Bye.